look at this head.
Oh, nice. Hello. No, I should be like all those YouTubers, like hello channel.
They can like your channel.
Yeah, and the first time, hello, you all here.
I asked one thing before to think that this is part of a project that we have from the European Union, that is inclusion. We are supposed to talk about the things that she's going to talk because she's the specialist. But go for it.
Yeah, that's actually, I could read more about the project yet, but I think definitely some parts of this presentation will be also about it. But actually, before I go into that, I wanted to ask you, do you have any expectations towards me right now? Like, what do you expect, or what do you want to learn today? Or no?
Try to learn about my own misconceptions, because my knowledge mostly is based on movies and those type of like dystopian or futuristic depictions of artificial intelligence and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, like realistic stuff.
Okay, that's nice. Any other expectations or?
How is it in real applied to real life? Because we're so much oriented into technology and efficiency, and how do you see this in society? Like trying to give like a perspective, ethical questions, and that's very interesting.
Good, nice. That's I'm happy that I hear those, because I think I am answering those in the presentation. Well, let's see. I wanted to let me show you what I planned then for today. Is first of all, I want to talk a little bit about myself, so you know that you can trust me.
Yeah.
And then I also want to answer about some questions of AI. So what is it? Where is it used? What is it doing actually? A little bit about the ethical aspects of AI, and then a little bit about the future with it. At least the nearest future, because I'm not going far into the future. So starting about my story with AI. I am from Poland, from Gdańsk, which is in this circle there. And since very, very young, oh yeah, this is also Gdańsk, my mask. And since very young, I really liked any maths, then algorithm, very soon programming. And then I got to know about the robots in the high school. Here's the photo from one of the events when we were programming robots from Lego. And so took part in the contest. Actually, now just today when I thought about it, it was like, it's actually, some people could call it already artificial intelligence, what we were doing, like, trying to have the algorithm, how to go through the labyrinth or how to follow a path and so on. So this was my starting point, basically. And there in Gdańsk, I also did my Bachelor of Engineering in Robotics and Automatization. And for my bachelor thesis, I had this device that you can see there put on my brain, on my head, not exactly on my brain. But basically, my bachelor was about using this device to control another object, basically. So it was already cool that they got this at the university, and I could try out this object. And that was my first encounter with the real instant use of and kind of home use of AI and brain interface. So this is cool stuff, basically. 1 year to Sweden, to Umeå, so this kind of up north. And there I had kind of my 1 year of trying out different fields of science. So I did one of the things that I did was human-robot interaction. So we were also, and hence I also learned about basically human-computer interaction also. And I applied for master thesis from EIT program that was human-computer interaction, which I then did in Finland, Helsinki or Aalto, and Stockholm. So this was last 3 years. It should be 2, but And yeah, it was a lot about the last years of studying. So we were just having fun with friends and doing a lot of groups projects. So it looked very often like this, laptops, some electronic stuff, and so on. It was all AI, design, electronics, really a lot of different things. And I finished with, so since May last year, I am working on a project in a startup, then as a master thesis, then as research. I just submitted today a paper for the conference, so keep that fingers crossed. So I worked in the research about the trustworthy AI in the public sector. So we worked a bit with the actually different Helsinki and Espoo public sector institutions and representatives to really talk about, okay, what AI means here and how we can have it trustworthy for citizens. So this is about me and what was my way, and all this presentation here will be basically kind of gather knowledge through those a lot of different study courses that I had and some work experiences that I had also in here. And good, so I have the question, again, a question to you. When you think AI or robotics, so what images come to you? What do you think? We heard a bit of movies. Any like particular images you have from there, or like from anywhere else?
Robotic, how do you say, vacuum cleaners.
Oh yeah.
We were watching that the other day, but I don't know if that's.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good example.
The idea of a small robot that can talk and can do everything in the house is very cool.
And that's nice. Like in Jetsons, the robot that was brushing teeth and so on. Yeah, those are nice ones. Any other examples that you can think of, or like any like maybe feelings that you have when you hear AI?
Coldness, losing jobs, in the service sector. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Waiters in a restaurant or something that could, like if it really works, it would certain jobs. I mean, it could be a good thing, but then it could, especially in the service sector or in like factories or blue collar jobs, take people's positions. I mean, it might be, but it then maybe creates other positions, but for different type of people.
Yeah.
Have more education.
We will talk about it also. But it's nice to also hear exactly those different concerns that you have, because it's normal that we can have those different feelings and concerns right now, images. Anyone would like to add anything?
I was thinking about cars.
Uh-huh.
Like cars that drive by themselves, and then about the ethical issues, like that are connected to the programming, what to do.
Oh, yeah, this is a big topic to go into that.
Yeah.
Okay, those are very nice examples. And if I now try to, I didn't want to have very technical presentation, so I won't give you describing really what exactly AI is, but I will try to give you some kind of context and so on. And just a very small introduction to it is I found some, its definition taken from one of the dictionaries basically, which I pretty much like. So what they really focus on, that AI is a study, or I would rather say that some existing algorithm systems that reflect qualities of the human mind, such as understanding language, recognizing pictures, solving problems, learning. So I think those are very important when we talk about AI, that they have this kind of abilities. On the other hand, we can also there is this big boom, AI is something magical and so on, but really if you go into the technical side of it, it turns out that AI, it's very often the algorithm, like on the right, this is kind of very easy algorithm blocks, or the statistics, so any mathematical statistics that we all already knew since, I don't know, like last century. But the thing that changed is that we now have much better computers that can process a lot, that are faster, and that we have much more data gathered that we can use. So there was already some, first AI boom in last century. I don't remember exactly the years. But at that point, we didn't really have enough power to process all of that. It's kind of, went down. Everyone thought that, okay, we are not going back there. There won't be artificial intelligence. But now as we have it, and then it raises again. But it's nothing magical. It's really, kind of the science based on the math, very much on the maths and algorithmic knowledge that we had. Then, okay, so now going from this kind of a little bit of introduction to what it actually is, if we think of where AI is used, so we have the cars, for example, we talk a bit of factories or the service. Do you have any thoughts like where else is used right now AI, where you can see some AI examples?
I'm thinking if it's a kind of example, like I remember one first front page of book where there was picture made by computer or machine.
Yeah.
Is it also AI?
Yeah, I mean,
or kind of
I think
statistically chosen things that fits for people and that people like to look, or they are just usually on the picture.
I think something that it's important also to mention by the definition of AI is that the biggest problem now when you write the research paper on AI is that there is no clear definition of it, really. Mm-hmm. That researchers among themselves are really not fighting, of course, but some would say that machine learning, you might heard this concept, is artificial intelligence, and some would say this is just normal statistics. There's no intelligence in that. Mm-hmm. And then some others would say that every like algorithm that we know and that we knew is artificial intelligence, and some would say that we don't have yet any artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of definitions. But I personally used to use AI for any of this type of systems that we see that they do kind of illustrate our mind or reflect our mind, so that they can recognize pictures, that they can take pictures that look as if human made them, for example. There is this very nice test, Turing test, maybe you heard it, for artificial intelligence that so in his opinion, we have the AI. So the experiment he was setting is that there are two rooms, and in one room there is either human or AI, and in another room there is a person. And then the person chats or somehow interacts with the AI or the person in the other room. So if that person cannot say whether it's human or AI, that means that this is already an AI, because we cannot really see that if that's a person of AI. But as long as the person can recognize whether he or she is interacting with AI or not, then it's not an AI yet. So that's one of the, I think, also how to look at it.
What about like Instagram and the algorithms, for example, that they use to filter the content?
I would say this is pretty much something that most of the people would call AI. It's not very complex. Very often it's not very complex AI, but I would say that exactly that's also very nice. I put down some of the examples where it actually is used. So we talked about the factories. So actually, big amount of AI and algorithm and all the mechanism, robotics is used just in the industry. This is a very big kind of area of where to use it. So automatization also of all the processes, more or less intelligent. Lately also they really do much more on actually having both human and robots interacting with each other. So if there's some very complex or something that should be handcrafted, how to make this kind of interaction that robot, passes something to a person and the person passes back. So this is also something interesting that is ongoing. Then we have something that I really like. So art field, for example, you might have heard about this movie, or like the filter that can change the normal picture to Van Gogh style picture. But what was fun for me also is that for example, I was at the concert of a music band that sang a song created by AI. So they just put to AI a lot of different lyrics, a lot of different melodies, and AI created a song. There is also a very short science fiction movie, like 16 minutes or so, that AI created the text play for it. So this also is something that is right now happening. What else? In the cities, in the cars, as we say, this is something that is just right now being implemented, like you could see like what Tesla is doing, so that some of the cars are already having this possibility of self-driving. However, it's still recommended that driver keeps the, how we call it? The steering wheel. Yeah, all the time. So it's not yet as much tested. It's not so trusted yet. But then in the cities, it's like, I would say in Europe, it's not yet so much used. It is starting to be used. In UK, there are some examples that it was used in, for example, immigration services, in basically different administration tasks. Much more it's used in US, and also I think in China in some cases. So so it's already also used around us in a lot of this administrative tasks, basically. But it's also coming, of course, to healthcare. It's already helping in different imagining or like finding different body tissue, for example, in our body on different pictures. And then, of course, it's just nearby us. So exactly, different social media that we are using, Spotify and so on, where we get recommended different music or movies. Then in the utensils that we are using every day, like Alexa, the assistants that we talk with, or those robots, this is also something that people consider as a AI. And yeah, then I wanted to tell you what AI can do. This is also one of the examples of what creative AI can do, change the children drawings to like merge it with normal pictures. But if I try to tell what current AI is able to do, so most of the AI tasks are like this type, or most of the AI systems are this type of one task AI, but of course can be combined in a more complex system. So for example, there are those recommendation AIs that can recommend you the movie or music, as we said. There are the classification ones. So you can think of it that, you give a picture to an AI, and AI tells, okay, this is that. Or you give some, exactly what we thought, for example, the brain imaginary, and it will tell, okay, it's everything fine or not. So this type of AI, and for classification, it's very much needed that we have a lot of already, as we call, labeled data. So that we have a lot of, for example, if AI is to be recognizing dogs, then it has to be given a lot of pictures with dogs, so it can learn based on that. Then there is clustering. So this is the AI that doesn't have any information given at the beginning, but it just kind of learns by comparing different instances between each other. So then it just can group different, for example, images or and so on to different places. Then, of course, there's language processing that uses also the different mechanisms above. And that's, of course, what we can see in different chat boxes. Or we can see that also sometimes, for example, in the student health call machine, they're actually using voice recognition to get what are you calling with. And so this is all this kind of one task AI. There are also other more detailed. I tried to just list the ones that came to my mind. There are also, like, of course, when we talk about robots, so to understand where am I, to visualize the area, and to get, for example, find the route, and so on. But then a lot of also focus is put already since a few years into the general AI. So I think the very nice explanation what I was given once was that, one task AI is the AI that can learn chess playing, for example. So it will be learning always the chess playing, and it will be great in chess playing, but if you give it another game, then it will be like, oh, I cannot do that. And then what they are doing is general AI, that it will learn every game you give it, in a way. So this is something where we are going to. There are already existing AIs that are skilled in many different areas. And so from one side, I know that part of the research is going into that. But on the other hand, those one-task AIs are very often much more useful right now. So it's also not that this is the only focus there. And yeah, we are coming to those bad scenarios with AI. What can happen? This is from one of the most developed research centers on humanoids. So robots that look like humans or try to look like human. Maybe that's the better word. So yeah, you might get it from media and from movies a lot that, AI is destroying us and we're really bring, bad things. I'm a little bit more optimistic, but still, it's very important to say that there are a lot of problems that are connected with current AI that we have around us, and those are really needed to be addressed. So one thing is the transparency of it, and I'll try to explain. If you have any questions, by the way, if you don't understand something, just wave, stop me, and ask the question. But from the research perspective, AI transparency is looked at most of all in the cases where AI is based on the neural networks. Neural networks is this one of the mechanism or algorithm that is used in AI field that is reflecting how our brains works, basically. So it also consists of neurons, of connections, and it came basically from a big study of how our brains work. So this is the AI that is the most developed and can give and kind of gives the best results in many applications. Not in all, but in many applications, it can bring the most promising and the most futuristic also, let's say so, results. But the big problem with that is that it's kind of this black box. So we give something to this neural network, something happens there, we get the output, and very often a lot of AI specialists, or rather AI practitioners rather than specialists, what they are just doing is that they're just working out and giving different inputs, changing some of the parameters and so on. So they're also based on trial and errors and so on. They're making it to be the best AI, but they really cannot say why this parameter would be better than this one. And then also if the error happens, then they cannot really say why. So this is a little bit problematic, and this gets a lot of attention from the research faculty or research area, how to make it more discernible. However, also when I look at this, I'm also asking myself, I don't know exactly what's the current state with the understanding human brain, but I wonder how much can we understand something that we do based on human brain if we also don't understand fully how human brain works. So it's also an interesting, yeah.
This might be a stupid question, but I was thinking a lot about the human brain, and we know so little about the brain's capacity, so probably also about AI. So I was thinking that about the parameters. So if you're giving, are the results always the same, or does the AI also improvise, or does it give new angles if you use the same parameters?
So there are two things in AI when you use it. One thing is the data that you are giving it, and another is the parameters. Okay. And the thing is that the more data you give it, it will learn indeed. So it will, even with the same parameters, it will change the parameters inside it. It will change the connection inside it. It's same with the brain. So when we are learning, some of the connections can disappear and some of the connection can appear as much as we learn, change our habits and so on. So it's the same here, that the more input we'll give, even without changing parameters, the results will be changing after some time. So yeah, this is that's a nice question. But
excuse me, is it possible to create a Frankenstein? Could that happen? A robot that's out of control? And you're like, oh my God, what did I create?
What?
You were afraid.
No, I mean, sorry, but
I think basically I think this is somewhere where this researcher goes to. So I think this researcher is really, I wouldn't say it doesn't get really big focus among the researchers. I think, you know, it might happen because we always get people who get interested in such a things and then might want to do that. But I wouldn't be so much afraid about it, personally. However, something that I actually didn't include that, and as we are talking about it, I think the only thing here that maybe it is actually very troublesome is the AI used in the wars. And I think this is something that it's much more kind of a very delicate topic as well. I don't have slides about it, but we can talk about it later because I also took part in some seminars about it. Coming back to the transparency, so this is, you know, this is from research. So if you go put into this any like Scholar, like Google Scholar or anything like this, AI transparency, a lot about it, or explainability, it's about this. However, what I, from the designer perspective, was also doing a lot is like, one thing is the, you know, how explainable is this black box, and another thing is like how actually people are understanding AI. And this is something that is also very much going forward right now, which I'm very happy about. And this is what Helsinki now put online. This is partially based on the study that I've done as well. So they want to now be very transparent with whether they use any AI in the city of Helsinki, how is it used, what data are they using, what data are they collecting from you to really use this. And I think this is something very important because, and this is something where in Europe we can really be good at, so be at transparent and ethical AI. Because, for example, in US, as I told, they already have different usage of AI, but they really weren't transparent about it. And last year in New York, when they published all the AI and automated decision system that they were using in the public sector, and suddenly people get to know that, you know, it's the AI that assigned children to schools instead of someone who would look into really what is the children background or anything like this, which might not be bad, but the thing is that when people didn't know about it and they get to know by accident about it, they get just angry, they lost the trust. So that's why I find it very nice that now in Europe we really want to make it right and bring the AI to us in a calmer way, let's say, so in the way that we will trust it better. Another very, like, this is one of the biggest actually issues with AI is the bias. Did any of you heard about AI bias? Okay, AI bias, the data bias. Bias is basically that, for example, in very, like, if I am biased towards chocolate, then whenever I need to choose the dessert, I will choose something with chocolate, let's say so. Because I learned that chocolate is the best, and even if it turns out that for me, I don't know, the marmalade is better, I would always choose chocolate. So the same can happen with AI. So if it learns from the data, for example, one of the examples here. So you can see from the original that it's probably Obama there, but AI would change it into a white person because AI, because most of the images that very often in the face recognition systems, a lot of images that AI gets is from white male mostly. And therefore, it's very easy that then, you know, it will just create the white person instead of the person that we all know, actually. So this is one of the examples. Then example that I really like when I was on one of talk of Google ethics, and they, for example, talked about the other case. So let's say that you have Google Photos, and then you can look for photos that you can look for photos with dogs, as we said. You can also look for the dress, people nicely dressed up, and so on. But what they forgot is that weddings are different across different cultures. So, for example, wedding can also look like this, where is no white dress. So this is also something that we forget in the data that we have, and that's a problem. Another example is, well, there was this short story of Amazon that they put a lot of funds to create this AI system that would recruit people to Amazon. Problem is that it would recruit only men, not women. Because based on the data it had, it thought like, okay, men are better in that job because we have only men right now in the, let's say, engineering positions. So let's just have only men still. So this is the big problem, I would say, and something that luckily it gathered a lot of attention and people are now working on that. But the big problem is that the data that we have gathered, a lot of the data that we have gathered is from white privileged male. There was even what was surprise for me, I don't know, there was a study, big study of a few dozen years of made in America about happiness. So they basically were having interviews every year, every few months with some group of Americans. And actually turned out that it was also only male study, which is like, why? Because before, like, it was mostly them who were asked for different research and getting data. So this is a big gap, and there are some new startups that are trying to, make it better, get more data from different cultures, from women, from different parts of the world. Okie dokie. Just gathered very shortly another problems that are around AI. One thing is the sustainability. Well, maybe I will refer to the image first. So start from the bottom. So one of the problems that are seen by some, not by everyone, is that, well, AI can be used for many important things, but AI was also used for many not important things because you can. So I think it happens with almost any technology that we, first of all, try and do different things and without really thinking, why are we doing that? But still, I'm very happy that when you look at the different guidelines for AI, you get more and more of guidelines that do AI only for well-being, for human well-being. Of course, we can say like something like this in Europe, and we can try to do that, but of course there will be also people who won't be doing that. But the movement is bigger and bigger, luckily. Then we have, and why is it important that we focus on those good cases of AI? Because actually, you wouldn't think so, but the AI that learns, for example, the neural networks that learn, they actually use a lot of natural resources. So because they run on the cloud, as we say so, but they run on the existing servers, and they need existing energy to process all this information. And you can really compare it. So if AI can learn in 10 minutes or in 5 minutes what we are learning our whole lives, and for us to learn all this, we needed to eat so much of the meals, and we needed to have so much of a sleep and so on. So how much energy it actually needs for that? So this is why this was one study published, I think, one last year, that, hey, look, we cannot be so, we cannot use it so much as we are using it. We have to, be considerate when using it. Then a few other things that are happening is that from ethical perspective, it's very important to address AI, not to go to the situation when AI is can be only used by privileged people. So this is something I would really love to happen, that AI is not that you have to pay a lot to have better service with AI, or that's any of those cases, but it's something that we all can really use and benefit from. Then identity, as AI is better and better in basically imitating human, mostly digitally, let's say so, not yet in a robot way, but more of like digitally, so writing text like human would do, or creating new images, photos. As you could see, there was a lot of fake Facebook profiles made by AI, for example. So this is also one of the problems, and here a lot of, I hope at least that there are indeed those groups at Facebook, for example, that are looking into that problem, trying to understand how you can really differ between the real human and the fake human, basically. And there are the ways for that. And then there's surveillance, something that hopefully never will happen in Europe, but it happens in Asia, for example. So basically using all this data to control people and to really go after them and have the full knowledge about what are they doing. And yeah, some just funny thing, I don't know whether you see, but we used to think that AI might kill us all, but AI still struggles to recognize a cat on the picture, assigning it as a dog. So I wouldn't be as terrified yet. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty normal to because really media creates this picture of those robots, like a lot of movies like iRobot, Westworld. Yeah. There's a lot of that happens, and it gives you chills. Or Black Mirror, for example, I still have chills after one of the episodes there. So yeah, it gives us indeed this type. But I think also thanks to that, I believe that there are people who think, oh yeah, this could go wrong, therefore let's maybe not go this way. And focus really, I think what is very important to also remember that AI is a tool indeed. AI is a tool that can help us. Also in the job replacement, that's very, very valid concern. And also very valid what you said afterwards, that it also creates new opportunities. And that's something we also should remember, that, okay, yes, some jobs will be replaced. Some of the jobs that are the most that can be the easiest to automate will be replaced. However, it will also create a lot of new jobs. And some people were saying that still, there's the creative job that won't be replaced, but still there's AI that can be creative from the other side. But the thing is, a lot of now research in that is to connect those two, so that human will work with AI in healthcare, in art, in industry, so that we can just cooperate and use it as something that can help us, basically. I had one thought here, I don't remember right now. But yeah, so as how I see basically AI in the future is that it will just help us in having better services that will be better suited for us. And something that we just, to make it happen really, that it will be a tool that will help us. I think what is very important is that we all have some education. We don't need to be specialists, but that we all have at least some understanding what AI is, what it isn't. And this is a new trend that is happening, which I'm happy for, that all of the companies that are using AI have some ethical consultants or ethical boards in it. So it's made like they make sure that there will not be, that AI will be used to make this world more justice and not less. So this is something that is happening slowly, but still it is going forward. So yeah, I hope for the best personally, and let's see how it goes. And that's all that I had to you. And if you have any questions right now.
Did you have something to say about the war?
Yeah, it's kind of very. I didn't have any pictures here, but I had one seminar on human-robot interaction about the war. And I didn't put it because it's quite a big topic, but indeed then I told about it. It is a big concern and a big dilemma for many basically governments, how to proceed in that. I believe China and US are putting the most money into that field. US already has the drones that can, and I think there was already the case that it killed actually civils because it was mistaken. So they already did those AI drones that can decide themselves. Most of the cases is that it's controlled by human, and human decides who is like when it would be shooting. But there are already such cases. There's also the robot that's on the border, I think, between Koreas, I think so. Made by Samsung, by the way. So, that also can not kill, but can, how you call it? Kind of paralyze for a moment people who are coming close to the border. So it's a big topic, and then there's a lot of questions about it. Like, shall we go this way? From one side, robots fighting with each other is better than if humans would fight each other, but then there are countries who cannot afford robots, so then robots contra human is kind of even worse in a way. And then also the question are like, okay, we might try to have our AI very ethical, tested, so it doesn't make mistakes, but then some country might have it not tested, and what's then?
Yeah.
So really a lot of different questions. And then the last one, like, who is responsible if AI kills by a mistake? Who? And that's a lot in basic law. Accountability is also a big thing about AI.
Yeah, I was thinking about the ethical code. So there is no general global ethical rule